But in Proverbs 22, it says this: a good name is to be chosen rather than riches, loving favor rather than silver and gold. The rich and the poor have this in common, that the Lord is maker of them all. A prudent man foresees evil and hides himself, but the simple man passes on and are punished. By humility and the fear of the Lord are riches and honor and life. Thorns and snares are in the ways of the perverse. He who guards his soul will be far from him. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. I'm going to stop there. Well, let me read on. I'm going to skip down to verse 10. Cast out the scoffer, and contention will leave. Yes, strife and reproach will cease. I use these verses on purpose because, number one, Solomon is the wisest of men, based upon scripture and based upon history. As a wise leader and a wise person, it would do us well to listen to what he has to say. One of the things he mentions is having a good name. Choose a good reputation over riches. There are a lot of people who have money who don't have a good name. If you look at somebody and say Epstein had money, but his reputation's ruined. You look at some other folks that maybe they have a good name, but maybe their money level is not as high as others. You mentioned Billy Graham. He's got a good name, but his riches really aren't as high as others. So the good name is to be chosen rather than riches. I mentioned to you about the person who sent me something. Part of the reason I believe what he sent me to be true is because I know the guy who's sending it. His reputation is such that this does not fit his motif to spread stuff that's not true. Not saying it can't happen. Everybody can be scammed. Everybody can be fooled. But this is very interesting. And when it says this, sometimes what we realize is in a world today that strives for riches and strives for what the world calls success, numbers and size and all this stuff is what the world pushes for. But what do you give up in the process? Everything has a rate of exchange. What do you have to give up in order to get X? You know, in the business world, you may have to give up a lot of your time to be successful. One of the myths that's out there is that women make 80 cents for every dollar, 87 cents for every dollar a man makes. And it's a myth when you start doing comparisons. When you do a comparison, job for job. If you just take overall men and women, yeah, there's a difference. But you don't take into account, jobs like men will do jobs that some women typically don't want to do. How many men do you see that are bricklayers? Not a lot. How many do you see on top of scaffoldings and building buildings and stuff? High-risk jobs? Not a lot. There's not a lot of women. You see these big radio towers and people who climb up those and put those things in place. They get paid a lot of money. There's one guy his job is to climb up on top of one of those radio towers every so often and change the light bulb up there. And he gets paid like $10,000 to do it. And somebody said, "That's crazy." He said, "Yeah, it is." He says, "I'll do it for $10,000. He says, "Come on out, I'll show you." And they started climbing. And that guy got about 200 feet in the air and stopped. He goes, "What are you stopping for? We have 800 more feet to go." Lord. It's, you're up there just doing this and all you're hanging on to is a little thing, it's a different. Why does he get paid a lot of money? It's not for the job. It's for what could cost him with the job. So it's great. You start doing things like that, or you look at guys, most men will work longer hours than women will. Usually men don't take off when it comes to having a family. So there's not gaps in their work history. So there's a lot of things like that go on. And that's the thing you got to realize. There's an exchange rate. You may move up the ladder, but what does it cost you? What does it cost you to be able to do this? What does it cost you? I heard Bishop Jake say one time, he goes, "This is I'm the longest overnight success I've ever met." He said, "It took me 25 years to be an overnight success." In other words, he had 25 years of ministry before anybody really knew who he was. People don't realize that. They think he just popped up overnight. They don't always realize the years of effort that were brought in to what was done, the nights, the weekends, the things that nobody else saw. They don't see those things. And so you have to realize there is an exchange. And the main thing you want to make sure you don't exchange on your way up is your reputation, is your name. Make sure that you keep your name all the way through. Because here's the other part. Whether you're rich or poor, you're made by God. Now, what does that talk about? What he's talking about there is the fact that just because you have money, you can't treat them better than somebody else. You can't treat people better just because they have more money than somebody else. No, they're all made in the image of God. So the rich and the poor all have equal access, or as a songwriter said, the ground is level at the foot of the cross. There's no big ifs in these things here. You have to realize that, because sometimes people will look at people and like, oh, you've got a little bit of money, all of a sudden now you're something special, and they want to treat you better. And you cannot do that with people. Again, it's your reputation, it's your name. Honor who they are. It goes on and it talks about a prudent man. This is all going to tie in together. A prudent man foresees evil and prepares himself, hides himself. We were walking, driving yesterday and walking yesterday, and I'm like, man, whenever I do those walks, I get out in nature. I'll tell you, I love nature as long as there's a city nearby. I don't mind going to nature as long as I can leave it. But I go to these places. I go like the Grand Canyon. I've been to the Grand Canyon. I've been in the hills and the Appalachian Trail, and I see this stuff, and I'm like, man, the guys that came over that mountain, I mean, those are some men. They left their house. I was just trying to drive somewhere. We were going to see a movie, so I typed in nearest movie theater to where we were at. It was 32 miles away. And as I looked at my Waze app, it said a 40-minute drive, a 29-day walk. Now, I just paused because I thought, I'm going to go in an hour to watch this movie that it used to take people a month to go to. And I'm thinking, wow. These guys came over the mountain. Nobody knew if they was ever coming back. Some of them brought their wives and their family with them coming over. And my wife and I, we were walking up the thing yesterday. And, since my knees were still kind of healing, and I'm walking up there, and I'm like, we're kind of taking it slow. And there's a little creek running there, and I brought water, so we were good. But I was like, somebody stopped and said, I'm going to camp here tonight. Now, nobody there done the same, but I'm just in my mind's eye. This is where we're going to camp at tonight. Now, I'd already seen the sign that said, watch out for the bear. These guys didn't have signs that say, watch out for the bear. They didn't have signs that say, watch out for the Indians. They didn't say, look out for copperheads. They just said, we're going to stop here tonight. I'm like, these were some really intense people who foresaw evil and would have to protect themselves from it. We were walking up there, and we didn't think much about it because there's a road in front of us. So we'd come around the corner, and we just assumed that there was no cliff. We just assumed that we just kept on walking. But some of these people, if you're smart, there's a problem. I can always tell when I go downtown with somebody who's never been downtown. Because they walk around, they're just walking around looking at the sights. They don't see nothing. And I'm walking around going, okay, when this bust out? Okay. How many of y'all ever used to go to a party when everybody else is partying and you trying to figure out where to go? You know what I'm saying? I would walk in, I don't know any other party near that. I only went once. The rest of them I read about in the book. But I would walk in, and everybody else is lining up trying to figure out where everything is. And I'm like, when the cops show up?
How to get out of here?
Where are my exits that I can get out of here safely, quickly, and get home okay? Or, I would go some places and be like, when the fight breaks out, where do I want to be? I just knew it was going to happen. Now, sometimes it happens, sometimes it didn't happen, but a prudent man foresees evil and hides himself. He knows where he's supposed to be. The simple just pass by, and all of a sudden they get punished. They're just like, whoop, victim here. That's just kind of what they do.
Easy picking.
But by humility and the fear of the Lord, we gain riches, honor, and life. When we just begin to learn, I tell people this all the time. I grew up, and I can't tell you how many times the offering plate would be passed, and I've reached deep into my pockets to try to find something to give. And I can't tell you, I used to have dirty fingernails because I'd scrape the bottom of my pocket because there was nothing in it. And then I'd pull the lint out to the corner, and I'd be like, God, that's all I got. But I'm a giver. And I'm giving the lint. And Lord, I know one day you're going to put money in that pocket. I don't know when, I don't know where, and I don't know how, but I know one day you're going to put some money in that pocket. And I want you to know that when that money's in the pocket, I'll give it too. And I'm not going to be stingy, God. I mean, whatever I have, I'm willing to share with others, and I've had to learn. I mean, I've been abused and I've been scammed and I've been treated bad, but I've learned. But I'm still a giver. I'm always looking for places to give. What can I do? Where can we give? What can we bless others with? And we're trying to find that good soil that we can pour things in. That's where we begin to get good riches. Because if God can get it through you, He can trust you with it. If He can't get it through you because you kink up like a hose, then He can't give it to you. Because it'll block up, it'll hold up, it gets stopped up and the flow stops. But when the flow runs through, then God can keep giving you more and more and let it run through you. And then the more you can run through you, the bigger the hose gets, the more stuff He can give you to run through you. Because He knows it's not going to get stuck with you because you're a person of reputation, a person who can handle the honor and the riches, and you go through. I told this story before about my dear friend Ron Toby. Did I tell you about that story with Ron Toby? Ron used to own Toby Tours. He's gone to be with the Lord now. And Ron and I've known Ron. I knew Ron when he was a sharecropper. I knew Ron when the way he got his business started was he was doing the senior bus tours. He was a bus driver on Saturday mornings bringing kids to church. And then he figured he could keep the buses going, and he would take the seniors from the church and take them on like fall foliage tours or to go see stuff. And he learned how to do those kind of tours, and eventually he decided he'd buy a bus and start Toby Tours. And he was the tour guide, he was the bus driver and the mechanic. I mean, he did it all, and he worked hard, and he did stuff. Became successful at it. Met Ron one day, and I'd just broken some glasses I just got. And Ron was reaching in his pocket to give some guy some money he owed. I said, well, listen, if you give away money, I'll take some. And he's like, well, how much do you need? I said, how much you got? Because I figured, So he ended up giving about $300 to me. I said, it's good. And I was told, you got to give it back. You got to give it back. Why I give it back? He don't need it. And he said, I don't need it. If you need it, you can have it. I said, see, you don't care. Oh, you got to give it back. I'm like, you're an idiot. So I gave it back. I was stupid. I should have kept it and bought my glasses. Instead, I bought my own glasses with my own money anyway. Not a huge ordeal. It wasn't a big deal. But the fact of the matter is, he didn't care because it never had him. Yeah. He had money. Money never had him. And he had a great reputation. He was a person of integrity. He was a person that would do things the right way. And he was just that kind of a person with humility and fear of the Lord. And God was able to bless him. Along the way, there's going to be thorns and snares in the way, but God will guard them from you. People who come in who are perverse, they're your thorns. They're your snares. Just perverse people. I get phone calls all the time. My wife and I both, we get phone calls all the time with people who just have their hand out. They want. Does your church help people? Yes, we do. Well, can you help me? I don't even know you. Well, I'm here in this hotel. No, can't help you. You're in a hotel, calling churches to see who will give you another night in a hotel and give you money so you can stay in a hotel and do whatever it is you're doing. No, I'm the wrong guy. Go to Helping Hands. Well, they won't help me. Why won't they help me? Well, they helped me last week. So it's not that they won't help you. Mm-hmm. So I talk them through some stuff. Well, my family won't help me. Where's your family at? Well, they're here in town. Well, go knock on their door. They'll feed you. So I began to ask, well, I thought you was a Christian. I said, I thought you were in need.
Yeah.
Well, you're just rude. I said, probably. But I've only got so much money that God's blessed me with, and I'm not spending it foolishly. At the same time, most people will never know who we do help. And we help generously. Why? I believe in being a generous giver to people who are in need. Y'all tracking me?
Yep.
This is the thing that God is trying to show us. And then it goes on in verse 6, train up a child in the way he should go, and he's always will not depart from it. We use that all the time when it comes to raise your kid in church, teaching the ways of God, when he's old, he won't depart from it. Contextually here in chapter 7, that's really not what he's talking about, 22, it's not what he's talking about. What he's talking about is areas of finances, areas of reputation, and areas of God. You cannot just teach your kids to be spiritually minded and that's all you ever teach them.
That's right.
You better teach them how to handle money. You better teach them how to handle whatever else it is that you're good at. I am not good at cars. It's not that I can't work on cars. I was talking to Brian the other day. I told him, I said, the problem I have is my hand doesn't fit in any of the car spots. It's too big, my fingers are too long, they never fit in any of the places. Now, if I had a 66 Mustang, if any of y'all feel led of God, or a 65, or a 4, or 67, 68 even, 69 fastback, I'm okay. Just let me know, because they had a big area, and you could take that whole thing apart with a 1/2 inch wrench, you can get your hands in there. Now they got so many computer parts in there that you almost got to be Plastic Man from Marvel Comics to get your hands in there, or you got to take half the car apart. And I'm not that talented enough, so I pay somebody a lot of money to do it for me, because I just cannot get my fingers in there. My point being is this: train up a child to be able to do the things you can do. Teach them how to do these things. Show them. Train up a child in the way he should go. We were out in the woods, and my wife and I were talking about, we could live. We stopped by this house was built, the log cabin was built in 1907. It was a farm that was there. And we're looking through the window, checking the place out. And I'm like, look, fireplace for heat, for cooking. Look, there's a couple chairs here. Look, there's even upstairs to go to the loft to go to sleep. I said, that's kind of cool, ain't it? She said, yeah, that's kind of nice. I like it. I said, I could probably stay here for a short time. There was no cell service. But I'm thinking, man, you can sit there. How many books could you get read? Now I don't know where you keep them at because there's no room. But I mean, if I had a Kindle in 1907, I could have, I'm just saying, that what could be, I said, they would get off work at dark and they would come home. Be home by dark, and then that was it. I said, we're coming up to that time of year where it gets dark at 4:30 in the evening, 5 o'clock in the evening. And then it's dark till 6 o'clock in the morning. They had forced time off.
Yep.
We can't even get time off. Train up a child in the way he should go. When he's old, he will not depart from it. Train him up to appreciate God. Train them up to understand the things of the world. Train them up financially so that they make good decisions. Why? Verse 7. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. You all know my other job as a realtor. I spend a lot of time helping people get loans. And the bank will ask for stupid stuff sometimes. And people will be like, why does the bank need this? And I said, nobody on earth will ever know. Here's what I can tell you. If the bank wants it and you want their money, give it to them. Well, that makes no sense. I said, I didn't say it made sense. And I always tell them, there's a verse in the Bible that says, if the borrower will be the slave or the servant of the lender. If you want their money, you do what they ask you to do. And if you're not willing to do what they ask you to do, that's okay. You just don't get their money.
Yeah.
My daughter asked me to co-sign for a car one time. And I told her, I said, if you want me to co-sign for the car, understand what you're asking for. Before I say yes, no, or maybe, You need to understand that if you ask me to co-sign for the car, you're asking me to get into your finances. So before you say anything, you're asking me to get into your finances. Are you sure, based upon the history of who I am, that that's what you want? Yes, Dad. I said, okay. She goes, there's another way. I would do it a different way, but this is the only way I know. I said, I'm willing to co-sign for your car, but I will be in your finances. And so every time I call her and we talk about it, she gets upset. I said, you asked me. You asked me. If I had to co-sign, I'd never say a word to you. This is all your business. However, my name's on the line. Yep. Now I'm in your business, and you're not going to like it, but you're going to pay the car off.
Yep.
Dad, I understand you got a plan. Your plan sucks. So let me tell you the plan's going to work. Why do I got to listen to you? Because my name's on the car.
Yep.
Don't make me drive to Oklahoma to repo it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying that it's somewhat in jest, because she's made all the payments, she's done fine, I don't have any issues. But we've had some conversations about it. Why? Borrower is a slave to the lender.
Mm-hmm.
We live in a world today where everybody wants you to go in debt. Nobody wants you debt free. If they sell you a car, do they even tell you how much a car costs anymore? What do they tell you?
Taxes, this, your monthly payment.
Your monthly payment. They don't care nothing about what a car costs. You can get in this car right here with all these benefits for $7.99 a month, $3.99 a month.
So much a week.
Or if you make so much a week with a weekly paycheck, you can get this car for.
They promised one guy $1,700 a month, and he thought he was stealing it.
$1,700 a month. Oh, I'll pay that for a car payment. You know, I mean, it's crazy. They never tell you what the cost of the car is. We bought a car a couple years ago, and the only reason we bought a car, my wife says she needs a new car, but she'll never buy a new car because she won't get rid of the car she has. My wife wants a 2007 Lexus GX 470 brand new. I said they don't make a 2007 Lexus GX 470 brand new anymore because it's 2025. And she goes, but that's what I want. I said, everybody ought to have goals. But this car was out there, and we ended up looking at it, and I talked to my CPA. He goes, if you buy that car this year, you can write off $20 some odd $1,000. I said, I can get that car and write off $20,000 off my taxes. He said, yes. I said, I'm buying the car. So we bought the car. And it's been a great car for when everybody else's car breaks down because everybody borrows my car. And I don't care. I bought it for a tax write-off. And the tax write-off was half the cost of the car. But when we bought it, I went to go buy it, and I was like, we're going to put it in the business's name, so here's how I want it. Oh, we're going to need 2 years of business's tax returns, and we're going to need this, and we're going to need a letter from the business that gives you all permission. I said, screw that. What does it cost? How much is it? Okay, we'll just buy it. What do you mean you'll buy it? I'm going to pay right here. So we bought the car. Yeah.
Oh, don't pay us in money.
Yeah, I'm going to pay you in money. It's crazy. Be careful. I may come here with cash just to mess with you up. And it could be pennies. Unload. Don't tick me off, man.
In a plastic baggie.
Yeah. And they're going to be wet. So I'm saying all this, not because the reason I'm saying all this is because I didn't want to be a slave to him. He was laying out all these rules and regs that I had to do, and I'm like, dude, I ain't jumping through all those hoops. Now, it was not we could do it, it wasn't a big deal. It required me to move a lot of stuff around and do stuff, but I'm like, that was easier than it was trying to come up with all the other stuff. And so I was like, let's just get this done, get it over with. And God's been good because of that. Here's the point I'm trying to make. As long as you're in debt, you're a slave. If you decide tomorrow you don't want to go to work, you don't have that option. Now I know Alan's retired, Bonnie's retired. Yeah, you're retired, it's great. But if you're not retired, Monday morning, I don't care what kind of good weekend or bad weekend you had, Brian, Monday morning's coming. I don't know time you gotta be at work, I gotta leave the house at 7. Okay, well, it's 7, you gotta go home and go to work. How many more personal days you have? None. How many sick days? None. You're going to work. Why? Because Friday's coming.
Yeah.
Bills are coming on Friday and you better have some money, so you have to go to work no matter what happens. Why? Because you are in debt, so now you're a slave to the person you work for. Is there anything wrong with that? Typically the answer is no. But if you were debt free and had money in the bank, I may not want to go to work today. I don't remember who it was that said that. What money really gives you is options. Money gives you options. Here's what money does. Money gives you this option. In December, I'm going on vacation. And we were, amen, yes. I'm going on vacation. And when I go on vacation in December, I tell you, every good congregation needs 6 weeks off. Every good pastor needs 6 weeks. I'm going on vacation, and we were talking about what are we going to do? We're going to drive or fly. And I looked at the cost to fly, and I'm like, we're flying. And I looked at my daughter and her husband, and I said, what are you all doing? Oh, there's too many of us. We're going to drive. I said, enjoy it. I'll meet you there. Because the cost for them was significantly higher than it was for two people, the cost for them. And I'm like, we'll see you. We'll meet you there. I don't even feel bad. Because when we were raising kids, I had to do all that stuff.
Yeah.
Now that I'm older, all I've got is options. I've paid stuff off. I got this out. I got options. Now my option is I don't have to do that, so I'm not going to do that. And there's a reason. So my point being is this. The world wants to get us in debt and keep us in debt. And if you're in debt, you are stuck at your JOB, journey of the broke. Now here's why that's a problem. If you go to work tomorrow and they ask you, what are your pronouns? And on your emails now, it's a policy that, Brian, you have to put Brian, he, him. And you're like, of course I'm a he, him, I'm Brian. No, you have to put that on there. And so you're like, okay, fine, whatever, I'll he, him, no big deal. But then all of a sudden, Jill next door decides she's John, and now you got to call Jill John and call her a he, him. Or you're in violation of HR. Now you're a slave because of the debt load that you have. Now you have become a slave to the state that can dictate what you must do. All of that is to say this. I saw this coming years ago, not necessarily the transgenderism, the he, hims, and the language, but I saw it coming years ago, that the state will tell us what to do. 5 years ago, the state said you can't go to church. There's this flu out there, and it's COVID, it's a flu, and I'm not trying to minimize, I'm not trying to maximize. I think if you know the risk, you know the risk. Make your decision. I think people made two major problems. I think problem number one was people decided they were scared to death of everything, so they never left the house. Problem number two, people were cavalier about everything, and they waited until it was too late to make any decisions. Both of which are wrong. There was other things, there was other conditions that if you didn't take care of yourself, made you more susceptible. If you were overweight, if you were diabetic, if you had COPD, if you smoked, whatever else, some of these other areas contributed. But guess what? If you get the flu or upper respiratory infection and you're overweight, diabetic, and have the flu, have COPD, you struggle with the same stuff. My point being is this: train up a child the way he should go. Take care of yourself. physically, take care of yourself spiritually, take care of yourself financially. But once the state found out that they could keep you at home and you wouldn't go to church and you wouldn't fight, what has taken place in 5 years?
Yep, it was a big test.
You could protest police with Black Lives Matter, and you can destroy billions of dollars worth of the city, and that was okay. There was no issue being less than 6 feet away from each other, as long as you were shouting at each other and screaming and sweating on each other.
Yeah.
But as soon as you come to church and clap your hands and worship Jesus, well, then there's going to be and they were shutting churches down. Our own filthy governor decided he was going to send police to keep people's license plate numbers to send you back later. I'm just saying, why? Because you are a slave to the lender. That's why it's so important we get out of debt. Now, saying that, technically, if you look at my balance sheet, I'm in debt. I still own my house. All my cars are paid off. But I can move out. I can sell my house and move out tomorrow and not care about it. Whatever. I can just have a fire sale. You're done. You can have it. Walk away. I'm done. I'll figure out something else to do. I've lived in a trailer before. I can live in a trailer again. It doesn't matter to me. I don't let these things control me. But at the same time, sometimes we're so far in debt we can't function. We're borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. We're borrowing our Visa to pay off our MasterCard to keep our American Express at bay. I pay them off every month. I know Dave Ramsey hates me, but I have a credit card that I use for everything, and I swipe it. You know, I've melted one. But I pay it off every month when it comes in. They don't make any interest off me. Because I refuse. If I can't pay it off, I get rid of it. Why? Because I cannot be a slave to somebody else who's going to tell me what I can do, what I can't do, when I can and when I can't. Do I have to go to work? Yes. Do I need to make money? Yes. Do I understand all those principles? Yes. But as fast as I can, I want to get out from having all that pressure so that I can look at people and say, you know what? It ain't worth it. I ain't doing it. I ain't doing it. I don't have to have that $20 that much. It doesn't kill me to have that. If I don't have that $20, I'm still eating. Sometimes when I'm showing houses, I'll tell you, I said, this is probably the best house we've seen. You probably ought to consider making an offer. Understand when I tell you that. I don't care if you buy this house or not. I got food in my house. I'm going to eat good when I get home tonight. I'm not living on you buying or selling this house. That's up to you. No pressure on me. There was a time where I was like, oh, I better sell this house. I don't know how my house payment. Different world. Mm-hmm. Different world. When you get out from debt, all of a sudden the world becomes different. You think different. I'm still a type 1. I'll spend money on what I want to spend money on, but I don't spend money on stuff I don't want to spend money on. Mm-hmm. I will go buy something. If I want it, I buy it. But a lot of times I'll look at it and go, man, I would like to have that. Let me take a picture of it. Now I have it. And then I walk out. You know, I don't want to spend the money on it anymore. I have it, I can look at it. If I really want it bad enough, I'll go back. Let me wait 3 months, 6 months, a year, see if I really want whatever that happens to be. I laugh at people because the triclinium out here, where we have the Last Supper with Jesus, it took me 6 years to buy that. The wood I got from Israel out here.
Oh.
It took me 6 years to buy that. I looked at that thing for 6 years before I bought it. It was the same one, never changed. He didn't have multiple ones. It's the only one that the artist did. And I just kept looking, going, man, I like it. Next year I'd come back, man, it's still there. That's a sign from God. Boy, I love that. Third year I came back, one for the Father, one for the Son, one for the Holy Ghost, 3 in 1. Woo, that's nice. I kept on walking. 4, 5, finally the 6th year, I'd paid off enough debt, I'd done enough stuff that if I bought that, it did not hurt my financial pocket. And I'm like, now I can have it. 6 years God held that stupid thing for me. and I love it, you know. And I'm glad I bought it. I'm glad it's there. I'm glad it's on display. I'm just saying, you've got to be willing to say no to yourself over and over and over again. I tell people, if you want to be a good Christian, G-O-O-D, get out of debt. Get out of debt. Good. G-O-O-D. Yeah. So you understand these things. Here's how I say this. So then the question becomes, and this is why, because the world is going to try to put more and more pressure on the church and more pressure on Christianity to conform to its standards. And the way it's going to use it, it's going to leverage your debt. It's going to leverage your work. It's going to leverage your income against you. And you better learn now. See, one of the things that somebody asked was, how do I get out of debt? Budget. Budget. If you are not writing down your budget, what do they say? If you're failing to plan, you plan to fail. A prudent man foresees evil. When you're budgeting, I'm looking at my calendar. It's October. I got Alan's birthday, I got Lisa's birthday, I got an anniversary coming up. I mean, there's 3 or 4 things this month we got to deal with. I'm like, oh crap. I mean, it could be worse. It could be June. Then I got my birthday, Father's Day, and anniversary all in the same week, so I get one gift. Just keep putting all this stuff on. I've got other things that happen. We're coming up on Christmas. Isn't it funny how Christmas shows up every year? People are always like, I didn't know Christmas was coming. Like it changed there. For some reason, it jumped a year. No, it shows up every year. Oh no, my taxes are due. They're due every year. You know what I'm saying? What happens is sometimes along the line we fail to plan because we don't sit down and budget. Where are we at? Well, you don't understand. I don't make enough money to budget. If you make more than $1, you make enough money to budget. Budget your money. Put your money aside. Tell your money where it's going to go. Don't let your money tell you. Too often we do stuff like this. Well, where are we going to eat at today? Well, not too many places because my wallet's empty. I guess we're fasting today. Or, I don't know, let me see. Come on now, y'all have stood in line at Walmart or McDonald's like I have, and you're trying to figure out how much money you have in your pocket, and you're like, there's a quarter, 50 cents, 75, and you're trying to go through it, or you're looking at the menu, but really what you're doing is math in your head. Carry the 1, and I'm trying to do this, and you're going through all this, trying to figure out where you want to eat at today. We went out to eat today, and we were sitting in a restaurant, and ordered whatever, and then we ordered some other stuff to bring back for Kim, and we're sitting there and ordering or whatever, and they said, well, your meal comes with 2 sides. That's I understand. So I want the carrots, I want the corn, I want the greens, and I want the green beans. It only comes with 2 sides. I said, ma'am, if I wanted to just buy 4 sides, can I buy 4 sides? She said, yes. I said, I want to buy 2. I don't care which 2 you put with the meal, but put the other 2 on the side. I want these things. It only comes with 2. I'm going to have to charge you extra for those. And I looked at her and I said, did I blink? She said, no. I said, I expect you're going to charge me extra for the extra stuff that I want, but that's what I want. Bring it. I fought the urge. I promise you, everything they wanted to go. I got enough money for it, okay? I can order this here. But it's just dealing with people that don't always think about, that's extra. I ordered, but those. And she was freaking out. I'm like, you're killing me. You're absolutely. Can you not give me? I wanted to take the pad from her and go back and show her how to be a waiter. But I thought that would probably not be real couth. I'm saying this because when you're going through stuff, I can buy what I want because I have the options. And then I reach my pocket and pull out money. My wife goes, "You're not going to use your card to get points?" I said, "No." I said, "No." She said, "Why?" I said, "Because I know how much I spend if I pay cash. I don't want to get a bill in the mail and be surprised. I want to know how much I have, so I pay cash for things. But we don't get any points." I said, "We also don't go into debt." I said, we're fine. We're okay. I don't need points. We're fine. I've got plenty of points. You know, and I'm trying to drive home a point here, is if we budget our money and we know where everything's going, we can budget even for tires and for fun. I look at my daughter's budget and I'm like, let me see your budget. She says it to me. I'm like, this budget won't work. Well, why not, Dad? I'm like, because you don't have anything in there for fun. And you're not going to go, she gets paid as a teacher once a month. You're not going to go 30 days and not have fun. You need to budget for something fun in here. Otherwise, you're going to have an opportunity for something fun and you're going to blow your money and then you're not going to know where it went. Figure out how to have fun. Then I tell her, carry cash. I still believe in the envelope system. I know nobody carries cash anymore with me, but I believe in the envelope system. I got an envelope. I used to have an envelope for gas, had an envelope for food, had an envelope for fun. I had an envelope for books because, like, I'm gonna go 30 days and not buy a book. I had all these different envelopes. And this as I make the decision, I'm not gonna buy a book this month. I'm gonna use that, and we're gonna go have fun with this money. Or I'm gonna take my fun money and buy me a better book. You know, whatever it happened to be, but you can look at those things, and that's how you would do it. Then I took my bills and I said, here's where my debts are. And I laid out every debt that I had. I got $20,000 on MasterCard. I got $10,000 on American Express. I got Visas at $5,000. I got Discover at $3,000. I got a Wayfair at $2,000. I don't have any of those things. I'm making them up as I go along. I have all the Finger Hut. Was a big one back when I was a kid. I had a Finger Hut, whatever it's called, Wayfair now, but Finger Hut. I had a gas card, and I had all these things. And you line them up, and then you put the payments over here.
Yep.
And I look at my payments. I don't care what the debt is. I look at the smallest one, and I put all my extra money on the smallest debt, whatever that debt happens to be, every extra penny. And I'm looking for extra pennies. I'm Grubhubbing. Actually, I've never Grubhub, but I've never even bought from Grubhub. But you know, I'm gonna. For me, it was I cut grass. I raked leaves. I preached revivals. I did extra services. I was a substitute school teacher. I did all those things, and any extra money I got, I put on my lowest amount so I could pay that sucker off. Everybody else got the minimum, and I ran all my extra money to pay that stupid thing off. And then once I paid that off, I rolled it up to the next. And I just kept doing that until I paid off every bill. And the funny thing is, I hear this all the time, the last bill that left my house was Sally Mae. My student loan. I finally got rid of my student loan, and when I finally paid that sucker off, I was like, hallelujah. It was the sweetest thing to get that sucker paid off. I was like, thank God I'm done with that one. And when I finally got kicked Sally out of my house, I was debt free. And I was like, I still had a house payment. Dave Ramsey calls a house payment debt. I don't call a house payment debt because the house was worth more than what I owed. So I'm debt free. I'm financially sovereign. And right now, if you look at me on paper, I'm like, man, I'm doing really good on paper. Now, it doesn't always work out in reality on paper because life happens, but on paper, I'm looking really good. Point being is this, when you become a good person and you're out of debt, all of a sudden now, next month came along and I'm like, okay, we're going to buy food and we're going to pay our mortgage and I'm going to pay my utility bills and I'm going to get gas. And there was a chunk of change that I didn't have a name for it. And I was like, oh, this is nice because this is savings. This is, I can build up my 3-month emergency fund. You want to know how important that is? And I know you all know this. One March when I had my knee surgeries, I was off work for 2 months. How do you live when you're off work for 2 months? I'm self-employed. I had money set aside so that every week I can write myself a check out of my savings account to my checking account to pay bills, so that we never, or I moved money from savings to checking to pay my bills. So I never changed my lifestyle because I put that money back. How could you put that money back? Because once you pay off this $300, $400, $500 a month that's going out, $600, $700 a month, for some people, $1,700 a month for a car payment, $800 a month, $500. All of a sudden now, you take all those bills and you don't have to send that to somebody else. And you start putting that back into your account. Shoot. I finally had, I know it took me forever to get $1,000 in my savings account, my emergency fund. I cashed in coins to get my emergency fund. I love my coins. I hate giving up coins, but I did. It was more important to get out of debt. It was more important to train my kids on how to get out of debt. And then I did all the things necessary so that I could start putting money back. And all of a sudden, when I saw my savings account go from 1,000, 2,000, 3, and then there was a need that popped up and we needed $1,000 for it, I didn't have to panic. And I didn't have to reach for American Express or MasterCard or anybody else. I went, okay, let me move that over here and write a check for it. And then the next month I put 1,000 back in again because I didn't have any bills. And then the next month, and then we could put some more back in. And then we wanted to do something, and we decided we were going to go to Alaska. And I'm like, we can go to Alaska. And because I paid everything off, we can go a certain way. And because I had points from all the times where I was stupid, we got to go first class to Alaska. We flew first class. Everybody else is in the back of the boat, and we chilling. You know, I mean, I had learned. I was like, this is nice. Why? I used my points for the upgrade, but my cost, and I didn't have to go into debt to do it. My point's this, and I'll shut up tonight. The faster we get out of debt and we get out from underneath the weight of the world and that financial pressure that sits on us and never walks away, all of a sudden now we're free. I'm not against debt that makes sense. I know Dave Ramsey is against all debt. I'm against debt that doesn't make any sense. I'm against debt that hurts people, where you're in a financial pinch. You know why most ministers preach on money all the time and take money all the time? Because they're so far in debt they have to. They border on extortion. I said it, I meant it, I'm here to represent it. Many pastors border on extortion because they're so far in debt that if they don't get your money, they're in trouble. And they'll connive, they'll lie, they'll put the screws to you. Y'all don't give, people are going to hell. They're going to hell whether I give or don't give. Be honest. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean we don't give, but you're not going to blackmail me into giving. I had a pastor call me one time. He said, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? I said, let me look at your budget. I said, can I see your annual report from the church? And he sent me his annual report. I said, you're in trouble. He said, what do you mean? I said, you're spending too much on pastors. You're spending too much on your salary. He said, what do you mean? I said, over 50% of what comes into the church is going out in salaries to staff. You can't maintain that. He didn't believe me. So when his church got into financial pressure, here's what pastors do when a church gets into financial pressure. You know what they do?
Move.
Leave.
Yep.
You know what they do then?
Do it all.
They let the next guy come in and figure it out. And he comes in with less money and less authority because now everybody's putting the screws to him because he wanted to spend $1.
Yep.
And it ruins the church. And then there again, he's having to preach. I went to the church one time, and I went to the church, and it took $6,000 to $7,000 a month to pay the bills of the church. When I got there, there were 24 people, 30 people, no money. I was like, how in God's name are we going to do this? They had a skating rink, and I ran a skating rink 3 nights a week and a snack bar to try to bring in enough money to pay the bills of the church. I got in and I thought I would be a good pastor. I went down to the bank and said, hey, can we restructure this a little bit to figure out a way to make this thing work a little better for us? And I went down there and I talked to the banker. He pulled up the report. He said, you know, that church hasn't made a full payment in months. I looked at it and I said, we'll fix that. Then we'll come talk to you. We'll get our reputation first. Then we'll talk to you. Proverbs, get your reputation first. I got my reputation done first. And then I went in and we never did negotiate. God just found a way for us to bless us through the church. And the church began to grow and God began to bless. And it was never financially solvent, but when I got there, they had about $7 in the bank. And when I left, I think we had like somewhere around 17. God blessed. Lots of work, lots of sacrifices, lots of hard work. But through that planning, we developed a reputation. As we got out of debt, you know what God did? The pressures came off. And all of a sudden now, sleep became easy. And now I didn't have to listen to what everybody else was saying. We didn't have to do skating rink 3 nights a week. I wasn't slinging pizzas. I wasn't trying to do 14 different jobs. I just said, you know what? God, you're going to make this thing work. When the pressure is off, you can do what God wants you to do. What would happen if you went into work and said, I refuse to call Jill John. I don't care what HR says. Because I'm not going to lie. My religion won't let me. My relationship with God is more important.
Yeah.
Well, then we're going to fire you. Do what you must. I'll deal with it. It may mean I file a lawsuit. It may mean I file something else. It may mean I have to go get a different job. It may mean the church may have to come alongside like it did in the book of Acts and hold all things in common and help each other. It may mean, you see what I'm saying, church? This is why this is important. And I started here as I'm going out to apologetics. Now, if you ever looked at my notes, which I didn't get to any of them tonight, they are more about the apologetics to help us understand the scriptures. But you can't stand for scriptures if you're a slave to somebody else. Because the owner won't let you. But as you take away his power, why was the Emancipation Proclamation so powerful? It held to our Constitution that all men are created equal. And it said, slave owners, you don't have power over slaves anymore. Many slaves stayed on and kept working at the same plantation. They just did it as free men. You can stay and work the same job, but you need to do it as a free man, not as a slave. Getting out of debt will help you in that process so we can stand up to the world. We can stand up to the government. And the government comes in and says, churches, we're going to tax you all. Fine, tax me. I'll pay the taxes. I'll render to Caesar's what's Caesar's, but you're not going to change what's in the pulpit.
Yeah.
That's the principal thing that we must understand as we continue to go forward and look at how God wants us to live our lives, living out a biblical worldview in an ungodly world. Father, I thank you for people's patience tonight. I pray, God, that something was said or done that would be able to edify, build up, encourage, and strengthen them. And Lord, as we go forward and we study your word, where people think there's contradictions, or people think there's reasons why the Bible should be avoided or thrown out, help us, God, to understand how to articulate our faith with conviction, with power, with love, so that through our representation of you, your spirit will draw some and the kingdom will be advanced. And I thank you for it in Christ's name.